Hi, this is a quick video to explain a little bit more about relays and exactly how they're going to be working with the JFish. Let's first take a look at a simple relay. This is a single module relay, and it can make things quite a bit simpler when you look at it in comparison to the larger relays, which we're going to look at in a minute. But let's first go over the single relay and have a look at this. If you look at this little relay, you've got 3 pins on here. You have a signal pin, you have a positive and a negative pin. So the positive and negative are quite obvious. It's voltage in basically, and then the signal is the pin that would be connected to your relevant GPIO port on your Raspberry Pi. So let's hook this one up so we can have a look at exactly how they would work. Now, something to remember is that relays require at least 5 volts for them to actuate or to run correctly, right? And the signal pin on here only requires 3.3 volts to actually wake it up. So every one of your GPIO pins, basically when they fire a signal out, they're going to fire out 3.3 volts, which is enough for this little guy to respond. So let's hook up this single relay first so we can see exactly how this is going to work. And on a single relay, or any one for that matter, you need a positive 5 volts, 5.2, 3, whichever. Then you need your negative pin connected. So this essentially is powering the relay itself in terms of the relay mechanism flicking on and off inside there. Now, to actuate it, you obviously need a 3 volt input. So for this example, I'm going to be just using a normal photodiode circuit that switches on and off based on light detection, obviously. And what it does is it's going to kick in a 3.3 volt signal for me and actuate this relay. So let's connect this in over here. Righty, so now you can see the light come on, which means that it's being actuated. So with this little photodiode, as I cover it over here and it loses light and gains light, it sends off the 3.3 volts and in turn switches the relay on and off. So it's busy clicking away, or I don't think you'll be able to hear it. But nonetheless, it's basically working. So that's how it works. In a nutshell, really. So let's move on to the larger one, which can actually confuse one a little bit, and I'll explain how that then in turn gets wired up to the Raspberry Pi. Right, so let's disconnect this lot here, and just for the sake of interest, if you were to connect just a single relay to a Raspberry Pi, what you would do is if you look at your pin layouts on the Raspberry Pi, you will see here that you've got your, on pin 1 is your 3.3 volts, and pin 2 is, you've got a 5 volt power supply here, right? So what you would do is you would wire the 5 volt source over here to the positive, take any one of your grounds as a negative, and then select the relative GPIO number that you'd like to use. So let's look at, say, 17, and you'd wire 17 to the S that's on there for signal input. And then if you fired an on or true or false on that pin, the relay would then actuate on and off. Now remember that the JFish system uses the GPIO baud mode, and what baud mode means is that it flips all these pins into sequential numbers. In other words, if you look at the connector straight up like this, you'll see that this is pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The even pins on this side and odd pins on this side, which means that if we looked at GPIO 4, for example, in GPIO baud mode, it's actually pin 7, and that would be pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the one-wire protocol for your sensors, for example, for taking temperature, is using pin 7, which is GPIO 4, but because of the baud mode, you're flipping into baud mode, it turns them into natural pin numbering, which makes things quite a bit simpler. So let's move on to the larger relay so that you can understand how that's going to work. Now on the larger relay bank, it's quite a bit different now because you have this whole array of pins over here, and there's no positive or negative indicators anywhere. There's normally a jumper switch on the far right hand side here, but you can leave it in its default setting. There's no reason to change that. Now let's have a look at these pins over here. You'll see on the far left hand side, or somewhere in this bank, you should have a GND, which is the ground pin, which is your minus. Somewhere along the line there you should have a VCC, which is your input voltage, which is your positive. On this one we have a ground on the far left and we have the positive on the far right, indicated by the VCC. So let's put 5 volts into that, shall we? Alright, so I'm going to take my ground. Well, let's connect the positive first. Always connect the positive first. Onto the VCC I'm putting in 5 volts, which, if you look at your diagram for your Raspberry Pi pins, you can take one from the 5 volt pins up there. And now let's connect the ground. There we go. So essentially this bank is now actually powered. Normally these larger relays all have little LED indicators running across the boards to show you which one is actually actuated. So in this instance I'm going to take my little photodiode unit here again, and I'm going to choose a random pin, and then you can see it it's fired up over there. Let's switch it off, switch it on, switch it off, switch it on, switch it off, and there you go. So that is what, 1, 2, 3. So this relay is currently busy clicking on and off, and that's pretty much how that works. So on the larger relay you're not actually going to find a positive or negative indicator anywhere. They're normally just going to indicate in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, so let's look at this from connecting it up to the Raspberry Pi perspective, shall we? So this would be your Raspberry Pi connector, and in relation to your Raspberry Pi pin layout, alright, we're going to say wire up, let's use, say, GPIO 17. GPIO 17 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Remember that, because when you're inside your JFish configuration and you tell it which GPIO that you've selected the relevant relay on, you need to count this down to figure out what it is. It's not going to be 17. As I said, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is going to be GPIO 11 because we're running in board mode. We're not running in the classic reference mode. Right, so what I would do over here is I would simply wire a positive wire from the 5 volt here to the relay, and then I would take a relative ground, connect that to the relay, so this powers up my relay bank essentially, and then at that point I would just simply take my GPIO point 11, pin 11, and wire that to the relevant one that I'd like to fire off. Once that's done, you would then simply go into your JFish configuration. You'd go to the GPIO settings, and you would then configure that pin 11 is being used, and name your relay and what have you, and it should actually work. Just ensure that in your JFish configuration that you have no digits specified in relays that you are not using. It's not a problem. It's not going to cause any damage. It'll just cause a little bit of malfunction. We're busy working on coding that out. So yep, that should help you in terms of connecting up the relays. If you have any problems with this, please let me know.